Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Lecture Notes. So today I'll be explaining a poem Hunger which is written by Jayanta Mahapatra. First of all, I would like to tell you about this poem. There are three characters in this poem. The poet protagonist who speaks in the first person and is tortured by the desire of flesh. Second is fisherman who in his circumstances is forced to sell his daughter to meet the ends of body and soul. Third is fisherman's daughter, a passive, helpless tool of male lust. So there are three people. First person is looking for a female to gratify his flesh, his sexual desires. Second is fisherman who is stuck with poverty and has no choice but to sell his daughter's body to meet the basic necessities. Third is fisherman's daughter, who is an object of the male lust and has to do everything that the father has to say in order to meet the basic necessities. The title of the poem, that is Hunger, is a metaphoric and symbolic. The literal meaning in this poem is that the father and daughter hunger for food, and metaphorically hunger stands for sexual gratification of the protagonist. Lastly, the hunger for food and hunger for sexual gratification merges when the fisherman finds someone, that is the client, our protagonist. Moving on with the lines, it was hard to believe the flesh was heavy on my back. The fisherman said, "Will you have her?" carelessly, trailing his nets and his nerves, as though his words sanctified the purpose with which he faced himself. I saw his white bone thrash his eyes. So it was hard to believe the flesh was heavy. Flesh was heavy means the torture of sex starved poet protagonist, that he felt that his flesh was so much heavy on his back that he was facing some kind of torture and he could not release his emotions. So he felt heavy on his mind as well as on his body. The fisherman said, "Will you have her?" Her here, her is referred to the fisherman daughter, where he is offering the poet protagonist that, "Will you have my daughter?" trailing his nets and in nerves. So while asking, the fisherman seems to be carelessly trailing his nets, but he was not away careless. His nerves were stretched and white bone thrashing his eyes, meaning that he was quite curious for the poet to say yes, as he and his daughter have nothing to eat and are starving for food. So, in the first paragraph, it is clearly shown that how different people have different hunger, while it turned out to be the better movement because her, the fisherman daughter, can quench his thirst, while the man could satisfy fisherman and daughter's hunger. So, clearly, in the first paragraph, only the two type of hunger is shown. The first line clearly shows the hunger for body, for bodily desires, and in the third line, how the fisherman is trailing his nerves also, that he did not have a proper food and he did not have money, so clearly his nerves were also reckoning because of so much poverty. Here the words thrash and sanctified are used ironically because of the helplessness of the situation. I saw his white bone thrash his eyes clearly shows that how much the fisherman was deep down in poverty. Clearly his bones were showing and how his nerves was reckoning. Moving on to the next lines. I followed him across the sprawling sands, my mind thumping in my flesh sling. Hope lay perhaps in burning the house I lived. Silence gripped my sleeves. The body clawed at the froth. His old nets had only dragged up for the seas. So, after the fisherman asked the protagonist, he eventually said yes, and as a reason, the protagonist is following fishermen to the house, and he says, "My mind thumping in my flesh sling" is a personification where he says his mind was stuck between, it was only focusing on to devour the sexual pleasure, and secondly, he was in a confusion and in guilt, that still, though he was following the fishermen, but he was in a guilt and confusion that what he was doing is not right, and he knows that. Hope lay perhaps in burning the house I lived in. So here, house means the body and burning means the sexual desire. So he's, in the end, he decides that whatever the guilt he's facing, maybe it will come to an end when his sexual gratification will be over. Silence gripped my sleeve, his body clawed at the foot. So, this is a personification. Silence is gripping his sleeves, that without uttering a word means he was moving in utter silence and he was speechless. That he followed the fisherman without saying any other word. His body clawed on the fort. His old nest had only dragged up from the seas. So, while following, the protagonist saw that the fisherman had not got a single fish, and what he had got, the only person declined for his daughter. So, his body clawed on the fort means his mind is unwilling to go, but his bodily desires are making him move forward. And the last lines implying that how the fisherman went every day to work, and every day he came empty handed. In the flickering dark, his lean to opened like a wound. The wind was I, and the days and nights before. Palm fronds scratched my skin. Inside the satch, an oil lamp played the hours bunched to those walls. Over and over, the stickly stood crossed the space of my mind. So as they reached the fisherman's hut, which was quite dark and opened like a wound, this phrase depicts the worst condition of their hut because of poverty. The wind was high, symbolizing that the wind and he both entered in the same time. Wind is seen as a storm here, that how he entered, and their peace was as a stray. And days and nights before here symbolizes that not well, shows how the poverty stricken, that they could not see any difference or make a difference between day and night, literally meaning that not their rooms were, or their hut was not well lit room because of poverty. Also shows that their situation of poverty has not changed for a long time, that for it has been days and nights and they are living in the same poverty condition every day and every night. An oil lamp here symbolizes a wall clock, like a wall clock telling the time the protagonist has with the daughter of fisherman. There is no day but only the night. The night is only in the physical terms but also in the metaphorical sense, because there is darkness of sorrows over the fisherman and his daughter. Over and over, Stickley stood across the space of my mind. So the time was clicking, and he knew that the oil lamp means that he has only a specific time with the daughter. So he's clearly burdened, the protagonist is clearly burdened by passion and guilt at the same time. He wants to release his tension but cannot overcome the usual pricking of his conscience. The sense of guilt is emphasized when the protagonist says that the soot from the oil lamp repeatedly entered the space of his mind. So he was in a confused state of mind, knowing that he was not doing right, but his bodily desires overpowered him and made him do what he did. I hear him say, my daughter's, she's just turned 15. Feel her. I'll be back soon. Your bus leaves at 9. The sky fell on me, and a father's exhausted while, long and lean, her ears were cold as rubber. She opened her warmy legs wide. I felt the hunger there. The other one, the fish slithering, turning inside. So she has just turned 15, shows her growing age has only made an object of male lust. Women have been shown as an object for patriarchal fantasy and used for gratification. The fisherman deliberately tells the age, which shows how professionally he is speaking now. Feel her, I'll be back soon. Your bus leaves at 9. So clearly, they both were stranger, and as soon as uh, the fisherman tells the protagonist that this is the time you have left and I know that your bus will be leaving soon, he is shocked. Therefore he says the sky fell on me, because being a stranger, he is astonished that how the other man knows that when he would be leaving. So this also specify that the fisherman is mentioning that how much time he has with the girl. Ear were cold as rubber specifies that this conveys the passivity of the girl, that she had no warmth in her body, and it has turned out to be the work, and she had turned out to be a sexual labor, and it was the work she was doing every day, and it was nothing new for her. So clearly, in the last paragraph, it is made clear that the protagonist also realizes that the trap was not for the fishes, but the trap was for the new clients, and he also turned out to be the one of the client for the girl. She opened her warmy legs wide. I felt a hunger there. So clearly, in the earlier line, the sky fell on me. It shows the hyperbole, meaning he was in utter shock. And the last three lines shows how he fulfilled his sexual gratification, and in return, the fisherman and the daughter fulfilled their hunger with the money they got. And the fish slithering, turning inside, shows how they made their sexual gratification. Thank you for watching this video, and do subscribe and like my channel. If you want us to make a video on any other topic, please do comment.